Get in the zone. Magnezone. I'm just kidding. That is such a bad pun. I am so sorry. Anyways, Magnezone is a very, very good mod for Ultra Premier. It's very awkward to use though because compared to it's very similar to Electivire. That video I made on Electivire. If you want to check that out, it's below here. But Magnezone basically functions like Electivire with the steel typing. Now that could be a good and a bad thing. So the good thing is not Electivire. Magnezone is an electric steel type. It has high attack and high defense and somewhat decent stamina. So Magnezone is actually able to have a lot more resistances and it's a bit tankier. In other words, it has a lot more survivability and a lot more play. Even the Shadow version. So because of that extra steel typing and its defense, it's actually a lot safer to use as a wild charge user than Electivire. Well, the Shadow one anyways. Regular Electivire has its some play, but that extra steel typing allows you to resist Charmers as well as Confusion too. So it definitely has some play to it. As you see here, the reason why Electivire is kind of risky is because fighting, which is Machamps, Lucarios, etc., pseudo counter users like Obstagoon and Excavalier are pretty dime a dozen in Ultra Premier. Along with that, fire is also plentiful with Charizard users running around. And also ground types, which basically is like the Drill Run from Excavalier or Drill Run from Excavalier. I think Sand from Fortress if you've seen that around. But yeah, it's weak against fighting, fire, and ground. And you see a lot of especially the counter users and fire spin users, like I said, Charizard, there's a lot of them in Ultra Premier. So Magnezone, even though it's really good, it also can be a liability simply because of the steel typing. However, it makes up for these liabilities with great resistances. As you see here, you resist flying, poison, steel are all double resisted. So opposing Magnezone mirror shots aren't going to do anything to you. Iron Heads don't do much to you either. So along with that, you resist Bug as well. So you resist the Mega Horns from Excavalier. You also resist the X-Scissors from your Scizors. You resist Dragon Breath. You resist other Wild Charge users. Even Volt Switch users like Ampharos aren't going to do much against you. Fairy types, all the Charmers, you resist that as well. Grass and Ice, so Abomasnow, you resist Abomasnow. Normal types like Body Slams aren't going to do much to you at all. Psychic Confusion users aren't going to be able to hit you at all, and you also resist Smackdown users as well. There's a huge benefit to using Magnezone because there's a lot of plays you can make because of its resistances. Now, does that mean you're going to OKO everything in existence? Probably not, but if you would like a sicker alternative to something like Electivire, then Magnezone is what you want to use. And it might even work better for your team comp. So Magnezone, the reason why it's so good is because it has Spark Wild Charge. Wild Charge's buff made Magnezone so much more viable and so much stronger. Along with that, it has strong bait moves. It has a strong bait move in Mirror Shot. And it also has Flash Cannon and Zap Cannon. So it has a lot of utility. If you want a one-hitter quitter, Zap Cannon KOs a lot of things in one shot. Flash Cannon also does a huge amount of damage if you're able to land it. And like I said, you have a very, very budget Mirror Shot if you can get the bait. It also can lower your opponent's attack. So it's like I said, very versatile, very flexible, works very well with a lot of teams. Now the thing about Magnezone, it might be a little difficult for you to find one. Magnemites aren't dime a dozen. I think it's been a while since I've even seen a Magnemite in a while, but Magnemites, you won't find a Magnemite easily in Pokemon Go right now. It also costs 50k dust and 50 candy. Along with that, it maxes out at around level 28 or 27. So you're going to spend quite a bit of dust to power up a Magnezone. So it's expensive, rare to get candy for. You're probably going to have to use rare candies for it if you don't have one already, or if you don't have enough Magnemite candy to back it up. Along with that, you can also use the Shadow version, but remember I said it's expensive. So it's really up to you. So let's take a look at the PV Poke analysis, and let's just see how effective Magnezone is in the meta. Don't get me wrong, it's really, really effective. However, you're going to see just how this steel electric typing can also be a liability. So Magnezone ranks very highly in PV Poke. It ranks at number 12 and number 19 respectively, with number 12 being the Shadow version. Now, it's not super high, but it's definitely up there. Shadow Magnezone takes out Venusaur. Yes, you take out Grass-type Venusaur with Magnezone. You take out Gyarados very handily as well. Lapras, Togekiss, and even Dragonite. So a lot of very relevant meta picks you beat. As far as the regular version, you pretty much beat the same thing, except for Charizard. So the Shadow version doesn't win against Charizard because those Fire Spins chunk. So Fire Spin is going to chunk the Shadow version. However, with that being said, you beat a lot of Pokemon with Magnezone. It's just nuts at how strong Magnezone is as overall in the Premier Cup meta. It's really, really good. And as you see here, you have a lot of moves that you could play with. You got your Bait Mirror Shot, you got your Flash Cannon for a nuke, you got your Wild Charge and Zap Cannon. And Spark Charges enter quickly. So, like I said, a lot of flexibility. Lots and lots of flexibility with this pick. Magnezone is also a common lead in Premier Cup. A lot of people like leading with Magnezone to break your shields, and if you do win the lead, it's pretty dang good. As you see here in the lead, Magnezone rates at number 3. It beats Gyarados, it beats Lapras, Charizard, Togekiss, and Venusaur. So you have a lot of picks in the lead that you beat pretty handily. It has very strong ratings, especially against water types. Now you kind of have to. These are also dime a dozen. A big thing is that you lose against Swampert, and Swamperts are very common in Ultra Premier. So are Excavaliers and Machamps, basically every pseudo fighter. Remember I was talking about that fighting weakness? Guess what? There's a lot of them. There's a lot of Pokemon in Ultra Premier that like to punch you in the face. And a lot of them have counter. And I don't know why. Don't know why. Shadow version is also very viable. Now the good thing about the Shadow version is that you have a stronger matchup against Dragonite because you do resist Dragon Breath. Now, there are differences between the Shadow and the regular version. They do flip matchups. I will show you in the Matrix just what you flip and what you don't flip. Alright, so as a switch, Magnezone's pretty good. Well, the Shadow version. So Magnezone's a very strong switch. Anything with Wild Charge will actually break shields for you. As you see, the Shadow version is very strong. It pretty much beats, like I said, it beats Venusaur, it beats Gyarados, Lapras, Charizard, etc. But that's the Shadow version. The regular version loses a lot of effectiveness just because of its output. So a lot of things that I've used Shadow Electivire a lot in Premier Cup, and the reason why it works so well is because it threatens shields. And it has one-shot capability. That's why the Shadow version is ranked at number 10. That sheer damage output that you get from using Shadow Zone is why Magnezone is so good. So that's why I'm promoting more of the Shadow version than the regular version. If the regular version is fine, but the Shadow version just has so much more utility, and you'll see why. Now remember when I was talking about utility? Switch Magnezone 10. Closer Magnezone Shadow 2. So other than Electivire in the closer, Shadow Magnezone is actually the strongest switch. So I mean closer. So it's very strong in all positions. Lead, closer, and switch, which is why it's so good. If you look at here, you actually beat, like I said, pretty much the same picks. You beat Venusaur, Gyarados, Charizard, Lapras, Togekiss. The problem is you're gonna lose against Swampert, unfortunately. Snorlax, Swampert, Obstagoon, Ampharos, and Shadow Snorlax will absolutely eat you alive. And unfortunately, I've seen a lot of Ampharos and Obstagoons in the closer as well as Swampert. So you could see any of these five mons are going to be really you'll see them all in the closer. Now, the thing about Shadow Zone versus the regular one is the regular one actually is a lot safer. As you see, you will lose against Venusaur, but it has safer matchups against what it does beat. So it's really up to you. If I were you, though, you get the best bang out of your buck using the Shadow version. So if you played GoFest and you got yourself a Shadow Magnemite, you're not comfortable with using Shadow Electivire or the regular Magnezone, the Shadow Magnezone will work really, really good for you in Premier Ultra. Alright, so here's the Matrix. I put Shadow Magnezone, and Magnezone variations. I put Wild Charge Mirror Shot. You have Wild Charge Flash Cannon and Wild Charge, and I also have the Zap Cannon version as well. So I wanted to put every variation out there that I could. Well, you kind of need Wild Charge, because if you don't, for example, with Wild Charge Zap Cannon, if you you need a bait move. So you need something that can bait. You can wild charge and then zap cannon, or like the other way around. But if you can't get a bait with, but if you can't bait with Magnezone or fire through the shields, you're in trouble. Because remember, wild charge also lowers your defense. So if you don't play it well, you're gonna kind of get yeeted to the next century, especially if it's something that punches you in the face. Anyways, like I said, I have all these variations here. We're gonna compare all of them on the Matrix, and I have the two shields right here, both the Shadow and the regular version. So we get our rating of, so the Wild Charge Mirror Shot version beats Abomasnow. Every other version does not. I'm guessing because you're able to bait with the mirror shots, or you could just go like straight. You're able to bait with the mirror shots. So mirror shot doesn't require a lot of energy. Because of that, you could fire mirror shots and bait your shields with Abomasnow. Along with that, you resist the weather balls as well as the energy balls that Abomasnow throws at you. Now in the two shield scenario, you're gonna lose against Charizard, and you lose against Ampharos, unfortunately, with all versions. That's just because I think it's because Ampharos and Charizard just I think it's because you're resisted with Ampharos. Ampharos does resist your Volt Switch and Thunder Punches. I mean, does resist your mirror shots as well as your wild charges. Ampharos does that. Charizard, the reason why you lose against Charizard hard is because your fire it could just fire spin you to death. If you've been in those scenarios where you've used Magnezone, you'll notice that it's very baity when you're losing matchups. If you can wild charge through the shields, that's cool. If they call your bait, you're in a really bad position. And if your opponent just chooses to outright shield everything you have to throw at it, you're just going to lose outright. So just be careful with that. You beat Clefable, you beat Dragonite, you beat Drifblim, Electivire, and Empoleon. These are really good matchups. Obviously, you're going to beat Drifblim because of your electricity. You beat it with all versions. Now, the only variation that beats Clefable is the Wild Charge Mirror Shot version. That's because Mirror Shot you can bait again, and then you go for the nuke. And you'll also beat Dragonite, Drifblim with all the other variations as well. However, you have weaker matchups just because Mirror Shot is just so good as a bait move, like I said. You beat Electivire with the Mirror Shot version, and you also beat Empoleon with regular Magnezone. So Empoleon, the reason why Empoleon beats you in the 2-shield right here with the Shadow version is because you can't take as many waterfalls as you think you can. Waterfall with stab from Empoleon will chunk your Magnezone. So just be careful. And as with all variations, when you get the fighter, because you're steel type, it will punch you in the face and you die. It's that simple. You have very strong matchups in Scalade with all versions just because you resist those confusions. As long as you don't get close, as long as close combat doesn't hit you, you're okay. So just be careful getting punched in the face, and then you'll be okay. You beat Honchkrow, you beat Lapras. You beat Honchkrow and Lapras, which Lapras is a very popular pick. The big thing is you lose against Machamp really hard. Remember I was talking about all those pseudo fighters? You lose against them really hard. You also lose against opposing Magnezone, so just be careful of how you play it. Whichever Magnezone baits better is the zone that will win. So just make sure you be careful of how you play this matchup. You beat Alolan Muck with other versions. However, it's interesting because of how the Shadow and the regular version. This is where it starts mattering. As you see, you win with Mirror Shot and Wild Charge, but you lose with regular as you see, regular Magnezone without Mirror Shot does lose against Alolan Muck because of bait potential, like I said. If you can't bait, it's going to hurt a lot. You win against Poliwrath with the Wild Charge Mirror Shot version just because, like I said, you're able to bait or Wild Charge. It doesn't take you a lot of energy compared to the other variations. And Poliwrath is water. You beat Caesar, you beat Slowbro with all variations. And now here's where it gets interesting. You lose against all variations with Snorlax, but you can beat Shadow Snorlax as long as you have Shadow Magnezone. So just keep that in mind. You can beat the Shadow one, but you can't beat the regular one. That's very important. And you just outright lose to Swampert because it's a Mud Boy, no matter which variation you have. Just because Swampert, those Mud shots are going to chunk. They do a lot of damage just because you are double weak to them because of Electric and Steel. And Swampert practically walls everything you have to throw at it. So Swampert's your biggest wall. So just be careful. You beat Tangrowth and Togekiss, but you lose against Toxicroak. Remember I was talking about fighters and ground. Fighters and ground. That's why you lose so hard. And you also beat Venusaur in the 2-shield. So you beat a lot of meta picks, but
you also have a lot of losses. So just keep in mind what you lose against and the fact that you lose against Swampert as well as all counter users because of just the fact that Shadow Magnezone is really squishy and even the regular version can't take a lot of hits. Especially if you wild charge and they call your baits correctly, it's going to be a rough time for you in a 2 shield.
Alright, so in the 1 shield, you're actually a little better off as far as like for Magnezone go. Well, it's really just depends. The Shadow and the regular version do have matchups that flip as a result of having one less shield. So if you take a look right here, for example, Shadow Zone still loses to Charizard. Shadow Zone will still lose to Charizard because you're squishier. You also lose to Electivire, but you beat Excavalier. So there are some upsides and there are some downsides to like how the matchups go. But just keep in mind and be aware of like what you will beat and what you don't beat. Now I think with energy and shield advantage you can flip some of these matchups, but just be careful. And as usual, you're going to lose to all five. You're going to lose to fighters and pseudo fighters. There's just no. There's just really hard. It's just really hard to come back from it. The shadow version can probably give you a little more. Like I said, with shield and energy advantage, you could probably flip some of these matchups. But it's just because pseudo fighters and Machamp are just really strong. That's why your ratings are so bad. So just keep that in mind. Also, Swampert is one of your worst nemesis too. You will lose. You will lose in a 1 shield. Yeah. There's nothing good for you. You also lose against Shadow Snorlax with the Shadow version. So if you're down a shield or you go in the 1s, you will lose against Shadow Snorlax. So just keep that in mind. As far as like, you still beat Tangrowth, Togekiss, and Venusaur. But that's with the wild. That's what the wild charge mirror shot variation. So just be aware of like, if you don't have a certain variation, like if you're trying to use Flash Cannon or Zap Cannon, there's nothing that you really flip that's notable. As you see, the number 1 moveset actually does a lot of work and actually contains most of the most matchups in the meta versus trying to be fancy and using something else. And now the closer with 0 shields. This is where Magnezone is in the zone and it goes to town and then brings your opponent down if you want to. Yeah. It's really good in a closer, okay? As you see here, just be careful though because the Shadow and regular Abomasnow, there are differences. As you see, Shadow beats both variations while regular Magnezone can't. I think this is mostly due to the fact that the Shadow damage matters in this scenario. When you lose against Magnezone, you lose against Ampharos in the closer, it's probably going to Focus Blast you to death, which very likely going to Focus Blast you to death if you don't have a shield. You beat Charizard, you beat Clefable, Dragonite, Dripblim. Remember I was talking about the Shadow? This is why the Shadow version is ranked number 2. Look at all the maps which you flip. You beat a lot of things in a closer with the Shadow version versus the regular version. In fact, the only thing that you really beat in the in the regular version that you don't in Shadow, is there any? No, there's not. Shadow Magnezone will beat everything the regular version does in the closer and more. So for example, the Shadow version actually beats Tangrowth in the closer versus the other way around. And you beat Venusaur. So Shadow Magnezone is much stronger than its original cousin. Not saying it's bad. It's just really hard to use. It's just there's a lot of like negatives for using the one. And there's not really, as you see, the Zap Cannon and the Flash Cannon variations. I would run your own sim, look them down, and take a look because the Mirror Shot Wild Charge version, there's nothing that's really like super notable. For example, if you Flash Cannon through shields, you're still gonna win with the Mirror Shot variation, etc. So it's really up to you. But like I said, there's not really any noticeable changes. Now the interesting part. What if you're up a shield? If you are up a shield, this is where things get really interesting. Because this is where strength... If you save your shields from Magnezone and you get into that energy/shield advantage scenario, what do you get? You beat... This is where you flip. This is where I think matchups flip. So it looks like with a shield, the regular version can beat opposing Magnezone, but Shadow versions cannot. You also Shadow beats Obstagoon, while Shadow can beat Obstagoon while so there's some really small matchups that you flip. Obviously, you're still gonna lose against Swampert. It doesn't matter because you resist Wild Charge / Mirror Shot anyways. But other than Swampert and Obstagoon and Magnezone, it looks like you beat a lot of the meta. You actually destroy like pretty much 90% of the meta.
Now, what if you're up 2 shields? So if you save shields from Magnezone and you have energy, what happens? You wipe the entire, not really the entire meta. So this is where Shadow Magnezone comes in clutch, because with Shadow Magnezone with 2 shields, you can actually beat Swampert. However, you do lose against, what do you lose to? Oh no, Shadow Magnezone up 2 shields actually beats the entire meta. So there's nothing that Shadow Magnezone does not beat up 2 shields. Now, as you see the regular version, you do lose against Swampert, and then the regular version does lose you against Machamp too. I'm guessing it's just because you can't really make up for that cross chop slash hydro cannon pressure that both of those bring. So just keep that in mind. But that's pretty nuts. So the Shadow Magnezone is very strong up a shield or 2 shields. So if all possible, try to save a shield or two or have energy lead with Magnezone so that you're able to finish off your opponent very comfortably in the closer. Or in the closer, yeah, in the closer since they don't have shields or upper shields. Now, if they do have a shield, in other words, 2-to-1s, certain things get kind of interesting because you kind of have to bait it. As you see here, if your opponent does have a shield, but you're up 2 shields, there are some matchups that flip and don't flip. You still lose against pseudo fighters. You're still going to lose against Swampert. The reason being is because that shield matters. So with the shield, it's a lot flexible. There's a lot of flexibility. So just keep that in mind that in the 2-to-1s, it's pretty much like the 1 shield. You're going to lose a lot of matchups. Or you not a lot of matchups, but you're going to lose some matchups. So just keep that in mind. So in summary, Shadow Magnezone and regular Magnezone are really good. It's just really like which one you want to play and what you're comfortable with. Because that extra bulk, but also the extra damage matters. So it just really depends on like what you want. If you like having that little extra bulk, then I would definitely go otherwise. Like I would go with something else. But if you like to take that risk and you can manage energy well, then you can use the Shadow version. So there's no real wrong answer. Does that make sense? There's no real wrong answer for like whether or not you want to use regular Magnezone or Shadow Magnezone. It is entirely up to you. But just keep in mind what matchups you do flip and you don't flip, and also just which position Magnezone is. As you see here, I'm using Magnezone as a lead for this test. Now, Magnezone's really good in the lead, but just keep in mind that if you do lose the lead, you kind of need to find out like how you're going to plan out. Like over here, we have a Swampert, and that Charizard absolutely just, this is just a bad scenario overall, but just like I said, decide how you want to play it. So I'm playing this by switching out immediately. I'm going to give that a shot, but it just really depends. I mean, there's a lot of play wherever you put Shadow Zone in a position, but it just depends. Like, there's a lot of factors to consider, like your team comp, whether you like it to risk it as a lead or to risk that shadow damage. There's a lot of different styles. As you see here, I kind of wanted that shield first. That's why I'm switching out. The shadow version can take some damage, as you see right here. We get a Dragonite, which is great. I'm going to try to bait with Mirror Shot and then Wild Charge down. Now, I need a Wild Charge for that Charizard. So we're going to try to do our best here to like bait this shield and like win. We have 2 shields here though. We managed to lower the attack with Mirror Shot, which is great, which is another thing to consider when you use Shadow Magnezone versus like Electivire. Because Electivire is also a really great mon. The issue with Electivire is that it's really yes, Ice Punch is a great move versus grass. You have great coverage, but also Magnezone is just really good. So like I said, pick your poison. Decide what you want to do. It's up to you. If you want to risk a biscuit, it's like I said, it's really up to you. It's kind of interesting just how matches play out when you use Shadow Magnezone or if you use the regular version. Just because, as you see here, if this was a regular version, we'd have more play versus this Charizard. The Shadow version, as you see here, it's a little risky. Actually, it's just risky to play in general. I mean, we should be able to win this matchup by using Sludge Bomb. But as you see here, like, it takes a lot. The kind of con with Shadow Magnezone and Magnezone, or just anything with Wild Charge, is you have to be good at energy management. If you're not good at management, it doesn't matter what happens. You're going to lose, like, over here. What I should have done was I should have fired that Mirror Shot. I might have been able to survive a Fire Spin and then fire there and then end the match. Now I'm gonna do it again. So that's what happens if you lose the lead. And again with like just be careful. As you see here, we get a pseudo counter user. Look how much damage these counters do. This is a good measure of just how to be careful because Shadow Magnezone is really vulnerable against counter leads. This is why I like using Electivire. That extra, that's like one of the points over here is that like it's very baity, like you see over here. And if you don't get the bait, it kind of puts you behind. So just keep in mind, yes, Shadow Bag. Don't get me wrong, Shadow Bag is an amazing mod, but like it takes a lot of skill to play. I'm not saying you shouldn't use it. I'm just saying like as you see over here, like with that losing that lead there really sucked. And now we're gonna have to make up for it by playing really well. We managed to grab a shield and do heavy damage, but you never want to be locked into a Charizard like this with Venusaur. We could switch to a Alolan Muck. Hopefully this is a Dragon Claw, because if that's a Blast Burn, this is gonna suck. And this is a Dragon Claw. Thank you. Because we need that extra. We need these shield. We actually need this shield. So, like I said, keep in mind what you flip and what you don't flip with Shadow and with regular Magnezone. Regular Magnezone, you have the extra bulk, so you have extra plays, but Shadow, you need to be careful. Overall, it's entirely up to you. I hope this sim is giving you like kind of like a good gauge of like how to play Shadow Magnezone. I could do a sim with regular Magnezone, but just do a little practice with like pvbook.com, and I'm pretty sure you should be all right. Like I said, it does take like Shadow Zone and anything with Wild Charge does require you to have really good energy management. So make sure you do a lot of practice, because without good energy management, as you saw in match 1, like things can go south really quick. So just make sure you're prepared. I'm gonna oh, I tried to swap. I have to shield. Yeah, we kind of have to shield here. I'm gonna try to Sludge Wave and see if we could take out that take out this Obstagoon, which we did, which is good. We're gonna take out the Obstagoon here. We get that extra damage. We have that extra damage. As you see, it's like it's really weird. It's really weird how you play Magnezone. Make sure you have a lot of coverage for Magnezone's weaknesses. Like you saw here, I was able to have a lot of coverage for that counter user, for Obstagoon, and just coverage in general for like I'd say like Swampert. Swampert's probably your worst nightmare. So Magnezone and Venusaur will gel well together, and we take the W here. GG's. Magnezone lead allows you to break shields, and you can come out of a matchup with shield advantage. And as you see here, it allows you to be really comfortable. In the switch/closer scenario, like I said, energy management is key with Magnezone, so just keep that in mind. And I hope that sim showed you guys just how like that steel typing really does matter. Make sure you're really confident about using Magnezone, and just be really careful about using it too, because like I said, Shadow can take some damage, but it just really depends. And there's differences between the regular and the Shadow version. Anyways, you guys have a great day. I hope you guys enjoy this. I hope you guys have a great time zoning, like getting in the zone and taking out your opponents in Wild Charge. You guys have a great day.